Outrageous Chapter 34. After having seen Qiu Luo with her own eyes, Lu Jiwei felt that Qiu Luo's fans didn't know him well enough. What world's famous product? He's clearly the world's greasiest oil slick. In that moment, she finally understood. No wonder the system would give her such oily lines. No wonder the system would give her such corny pick-up lines. It was because the original male lead was such a greasy person. Could the words spoken by such a greasy person not be oily? Lu Jiwei, good fellow, turns out it was you. JPG. She thought it was outrageous. With the level of acceptance Sang Wansi has towards such corny, oily pick-up lines, it was simply unfathomable that she could like someone like Qiu Luo. Could it be that as Qiu Luo kept being oily, she got used to it, or did the male protagonist halo cover up Qiu Luo's greasiness and exemplify his refreshing side? The halo could cover all flaws if that was really the case. Then this was a goddamned case of cheating someone into falling in love. Sang Wansi was taken aback by the sudden oiliness. Unknowingly, she started comparing Lu Jiwei with the man in front of her. Even though Lu Jiwei and the fans who liked her would occasionally say some cheesy lines to express their feelings, but they weren't at all greasy and irritating. And when Lu Jiwei said it, she would even be embarrassed sometimes. It was oddly cute. Qiu Luo wasn't he like that? He truly believed that he was handsome, that his words and smile were unbeatable. Meng Lianyu had taught her one thing before. When a man believes that he's handsome, that's when he's finished. In Sang Wansi's eyes right now, Qiu Luo was finished. She didn't like greasiness. But she still asked politely, am I the only one who is receiving this flower? Of course. Qiu Luo straightened his back, trying to further exude his manly charm. He was just one step away from striking a pose like he was shooting a magazine cover. A flower as beautiful as Miss Sang, of course only Miss Sang will have one. Sang Wansi oed calmly. Then she took a step back and stood beside Lu Jiwei, looking at Qiu Luo as she raised a hand to cover her nose lightly. Sorry, I'm allergic to flower pollen. Taking Lu Jiwei's hand in hers, they walked past him together. Qiu Luo. Lu Jiwei. It took Qiu Luo 3 seconds before he could react to the fact that he had been rejected. Standing in the wind for a moment, he suddenly chuckled. Woman, you're interesting. You've successfully drawn my attention. Lu Jiwei was pulled in the direction of the restaurant by Sang Wansi. Allergic to flower pollen. Was Sang Wansi allergic to pollen? She tried to search through her memory of information related to Sang Wansi, and after a moment, she realized she had no recollection of it. So she couldn't help but ask, Wansi, you're really allergic to flower pollen? The person in front of her held onto her hand and continued walking without turning back, speaking honestly. No. Lu Jiwei. Then you just. Sang Wansi suddenly stopped walking and turned back to look in Qiu Luo's direction, the corners of her mouth lifting in a shallow smile. She suddenly surged towards Lu Jiwei's ear and said softly, I was lying to him. Even a fool could see the intentions behind him giving her a flower. Since she didn't like Qiu Luo, she should express her attitude clearly from the start. She could accept a gift that everybody else had, but she couldn't accept such favoritism. When Sang Wansi leaned back, Lu Jiwei rubbed her ear self-consciously. Sang Wansi's voice was soft and light, it was like a ball of fire had grazed past her ear, burning until her ear was red and hot. Even her heart had skipped a beat. How was she so good at flirting with someone? Lu Jiwei snuck a look at Sang Wansi, who was completely oblivious. And she didn't even know it. Lu Jiwei tried to collect her messy emotions and followed behind Sang Wansi into the restaurant. She realized, Sangwon-si didn't like Qiu Luo. And she was even a little liar who knew how to tease people. So that was to say, without the halo, Sangwon-si wouldn't like Qiu Luo. Strictly speaking, the chances she would like Qiu Luo had dropped significantly. So it was just like she thought at the start, the main leads falling in love with each other was mostly due to the halo. Looking at Sangwon-si's back, she suddenly felt curious. Then am I looking at the real her, or the her that's under the influence of the halo? She asked Lao Wu that question. Lao Wu gave her a calming answer, it's the real Sangwon-si. Because of the system, the halo's attraction doesn't affect you. When we leave, then you'll be deeply attracted by Sangwon-si due to the female protagonist halo. You can think of it as the system's innate barrier against the halo, or a dampening effect. The host that works with the system will also share this effect with the system. The system hoped that the host would be clear-minded enough when accomplishing the missions. Besides, there were a lot of missions, not just related to being loving with the main lead. Some missions even required the main leads to be in a love-hate relationship. If the halo could make the host fall deeply in love with the other party, the host could be a love-struck fool controlled by the system. Then wouldn't the system be causing more trouble for itself? Lu Jiwei seemed both to understand and not to understand, thinking that the system had a lot of knowledge. But she still remembered that Lao Wu said the protagonist halo would exemplify the other party's excellence. So even if the system was no longer around, the Sangwon-si in her eyes wouldn't change in terms of appearance, but would become even better and more attractive. Sangwon-si didn't hear a sound coming from the person behind her, so she turned around to look, realizing Lu Jiwei was looking at her dumbly, as if her soul had been sucked out. Sangwon-si suddenly stopped walking, and watched as Lu Jiwei walked right into her arms. Sangwon-si's clean perfume scent suddenly wafted into Lu Jiwei's nose. Her thoughts were pulled back to reality in an instant. She quickly stood upright and apologized, "I'm sorry." Sangwon-si had no intention of blaming her, asking confusedly instead, "You can zone out even when walking?" Lu Jiwei rubbed the back of her head embarrassedly, "Because Wan-si is here, so I'm more relaxed." Sangwon-si suddenly didn't know how to reply. After staying silent for 2 seconds, "You should pay attention to the road when walking. If she bumped into a tree like before, then wouldn't she be whining in pain again?" Lu Jiwei smiled and quickly agreed. It was only then that Sangwon-si let go of her hand and asked, "What were you thinking of just now?" Lu Jiwei floundered for an excuse and found one, "I was thinking that even our teacher Sang knows how to lie to someone." Sangwon-si tilted her head to the side, a question mark seemingly forming in front of her forehead. Lu Jiwei chuckled, "Because you look too upright sometimes." Sangwon-si understood, her face unchanging as she said, "Anybody can lie. Can't you?" Lu Jiwei acknowledged it, "I can." Humans were all creatures that could deceive. It was only that their deception could have good and bad intentions. How it was used was completely dependent on a person's whim. Then, Sangwon-si suddenly asked, "Have you ever thought of moving houses?" Lu Jiwei, "Ah." Sangwon-si, "The place you're staying at isn't too safe, have you thought of changing to a neighborhood that's more secure?" "I have." Lu Jiwei smiled. "But that requires money. If it wasn't because she was poor, who would want to live in such a tiny house? The salary of a corporate slave was only that much and she still had to consider her daily expenses and rent. It was frustrating to think about. Actually, she had long since found a house she liked, but she still hadn't saved enough for the deposit after a few years. But it was all right now. She had dramas to film and she had earned some money. With a bit more work, she could move houses. "Don't worry, I'm earning money by filming dramas now. Once I had enough saved up, I'll change houses. It'll be soon. Lu Jiwei smiled, her eyes turning into crescents as her expression turned radiant. Thank you for your concern. Sang Wansi felt assured after hearing that, and nodded, you're welcome, it's expected. Let us go in. All right. Lu Jiwei and Sang Wansi were seated at different tables. As she guessed, Sang Wansi was arranged at the table for the main actors, right next to director Guo Hui. She was seated with the other smaller actors. It was considered rather harmonious at their table. Aside from that fact that conversation was a bit stilted since it was everybody's first time meeting each other. Lu Jiwei wasn't familiar with some topics, so she just ed and ed her way through the conversations she couldn't avoid. Aside from that, she sat at her seat and pretended she was an invisible person as always. She didn't stay idle when pretending to be invisible either, looking for something for herself to do. Recognizing faces. From the main table, she looked at them one by one and found that the time passed by quickly. As the dinner went on, the atmosphere got more and more lively. People were unwilling to stay at their original seats, standing up and picking up their wine glasses to drink with people they knew. Lu Jiwei didn't know anybody, the only person she was familiar with was at the main table. She didn't dare to go over. She sat at her seat, holding her glass of juice as she suddenly felt a bit lonely. To avoid appearing too out of place, she stood up and walked towards a discreet corner, looking out of the window naturally. You're not going to make friends? Lao Wu asked. I'm not used to it yet. In these sorts of big gatherings, I'm responsible for quietly staying by the side. Lu Jiwei answered. You need to slowly get used to it, it won't be the same in the future. Listening to him, Lu Jiwei unconsciously turned her head to look at the moon amidst the stars, Sang Wansi. She looked at her silently for a while. Then turned her head around and continued to look out the window as she sipped from her cup of juice. Yes, it was different. She had friends too. A very famous friend. Thinking of the endless potential of her friend, she rejoiced from the bottom of her heart. Loneliness, it didn't exist. She could live well alone too. Clink. 2 glasses clinked together. Hearing it, Lu Jiwei looked around. Only to see Sang Wansi slowly pulling back her glass. When their eyes met, she calmly said, "Cheers." Lu Jiwei leaned back a little and looked at the main table that she had left behind. It was still lively and noisy, but eyes would flicker over to where Sang Wansi was from time to time. Lu Jiwei quickly looked away. Why did you come over? To keep you company. Sang Wansi naturally took the spot beside her. Compared to them, you need me more. Lu Jiwei couldn't help but laugh, teasing her, if I'm in need, Wansi will immediately come to my side. It was just a joke, but Sang Wansi looked at her seriously and replied seriously, As long as you need me, I'll immediately come to your side. As a friend, to chase away the loneliness for you. To keep you warm every minute and every second. Lu Jiwei was stunned, looking woodenly into her eyes. That pair of eyes were forever clean and bright, like 2 pieces of clear amber, attracting people to look at her unconsciously. At this moment, there was no other sound in the world. There was only the sound of her breathing. And of her quickening heartbeat. After a moment, Lu Jiwei came back to her senses and looked away first. She took a sip of her fruit juice in an unsettled manner. Too dangerous. She had almost climbed the wall. Outrageous Chapter 35. Lu Jiwei had to admit, Sang Wansi was an incredibly charismatic person. Because of her sincerity and kindness, she had a glowing aura that couldn't be ignored even if the protagonist halo was taken away from her. It was truly a blessing to know someone like that. Sang Wansi asked why she was standing alone. She swirled the juice in her cup. I'm used to being alone during moments like these. After obtaining the male protagonist's halo, the number of times she attended events could be counted on a single hand. So her habits were those left over from being a transparent person. Quiet, lonely, unable to fit in. Because she suddenly became normal, her body still hadn't had time to react to the new situation. Counting that dinner from Phoenix, she only had attended 2 events. And the last time, the male lead sat on her left and the female lead sat on her right. They were both familiar people, so she didn't need to worry about how to interact with them. Sang Wansi understood and said gently, "It's all right, you can slowly get used to it. I'll be there to accompany you." Even if it was a foreign environment, as long as a familiar person was around, it would be less scary. Sang Wansi knew better than anybody else that Lu Jiwei also needed companionship. She was far from that happy-go-lucky persona she tried to portray. Optimism was how she kept living on, but it wasn't how she was from the start. If it was possible, who would willingly be a loner with nobody to rely on? Thank you. Lu Jiwei said. You're always saying these 2 words. Sang Wansi replied. Lu Jiwei suddenly fell silent, looking guilty. She didn't know what else to say aside from those 2 words when she was faced with kindness. She didn't know how friends interacted so naturally. She didn't know what to do to make a precious friend like her, and not leave because they're irritated by her. She didn't have any experience. Nobody taught her. Nobody liked her before. Sang Wansi looked at Lu Jiwei quietly standing there with a glimmer of uncertainty in her eyes, before leaning closer and calling out softly, "Gigi." That sensitive term jumped into her ear and Lu Jiwei paused. Sang Wansi's voice was as peaceful as always, "I hope you won't be so formal with me." A simple sentence was like a guiding lamp. Lu Jiwei immediately understood, and the words "thank you" were on the tip of her tongue before she swallowed it down. Sang Wansi's eyes were filled with expectation. She didn't want to let her down. "Okay." Lu Jiwei smiled, "I'll remember it." Sang Wansi looked at her for a moment, then smiled and stretched her hand out to touch glasses. Clink, the glasses sounded lightly. "Cheers." Cheers." As Lu Jiwei drank her juice, she stole a glance at Sang Wansi, thinking in her heart, "She's really good." At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from the side. The 2 of them looked to the side and saw Chu Luo walking over with a wine glass. "What are you talking about?" Chu Luo gave his perfect smile. "Do you mind including me in the conversation?" When he said this, his eyes were staring straight at Sang Wansi as he angled his body away from Lu Jiwei. As if he didn't care about Lu Jiwei's opinion, as if he only had Sang Wansi in his eyes and heart. As if he was just waiting for Sang Wansi to nod so that he could move a table over and light a romantic candle and hold a conversation over candlelight with her. Lu Jiwei watched his actions and detected a hint of animosity. Pondering over it, she suddenly felt a headache coming on. What is the meaning of this? He can't possibly be treating me as another male love rival like Xiao Ying, right? The professional Lao Wu came out to solve her question. "Hello, it's not a male love rival, it's a female love rival." Lu Jiwei. Lao Wu, he didn't get confused by the male protagonist halo and mistake you for a man. Based on his actions and the deduction of the original script, I feel like he must be treating you as a lesbian who likes Sang Wansi right now. Also, isn't he originally like this? Did you forget the original script? Anybody who likes Sang Wansi is a rival to him, without exception. A female love rival is still a love rival. Lu Jiwei. Caught off guard, Lu Jiwei was lost. She didn't know what script Chu Luo was holding onto now, and whether he would be a danger to Sang Wansi in the future. She also didn't know if he could be like Ying Xiz, willing to change and not be a tool for the storyline. But seeing as he hadn't done anything yet, Lu Jiwei couldn't do anything either. Forget it, let us wait and see. With her around, she wouldn't let anything happen to Sang Wansi. Besides, Sang Wansi was so smart. A female lead who didn't follow the script, her potential is limitless. Chu Luo's subtle actions were also all taken into account by Sang Wansi. Seeing Lu Jiwei act as if she didn't know what to do, Sang Wansi's eyebrows furrowed together. She reached out and pulled Lu Jiwei behind her, then stared at Chu Luo with a stern expression. "Mr. Chu, you're being very rude." Chu Luo thought she was talking about her pollen allergy, and smiled slightly as he apologized. "I was too reckless in giving you flowers, I hope Miss Sang forgives me, I promise there won't be a next time." Sang Wansi's eyes narrowed. Was she talking about the pollen allergy? She was clearly talking about how rude he was to Lu Jiwei. She got it. Chu Luo was what her father had spoken to her about before, a dumb man. "Don't get close to them, you'll become unlucky." Lu Jiwei stood dumbly after being pulled behind Sang Wansi. She didn't know why Sang Wansi was suddenly so unhappy. But she knew Chu Luo was unlikable, at least, she didn't like him. Chu Luo didn't need her to like him either. Love rivals would never get along when meeting each other. Because she didn't know whether Chu Luo's own personality was like this or if it was forced by the storyline, Lu Jiwei chose to reserve judgment on him. She didn't care about herself being treated like air either. What was the point? She was constantly treated like air in the past. It was so unreasonable, she had long grown numb to it. Sang Wansi had her own opinion. She didn't know the way Chu Luo treated Lu Jiwei. It was hurtful and overboard. Someone like Chu Luo would probably not know pain unless he was poked twice. When Chu Luo was talking to Sang Wansi, his temper and attitude was good enough to withstand all setbacks. What does Miss Sang like? He decided to appeal to her tastes. And he wanted to hear her likings directly from her. This would make them seem closer and serve to deepen their relationship. "I would like." Sang Wansi slowly spoke. Lu Jiwei looked at her, starting to feel nervous. No way she was really going to tell him what she liked. Doesn't that mean they have a possibility to develop? But she lied to him earlier. Could the female lead who didn't follow the script be taking some crazy actions? Chu Luo saw there was hope and his eyes lit up. He stared at Sang Wansi with burning eyes and perked up his ears, not wanting to miss a single word. With a captive audience, Sang Wansi's face didn't change as she said 8 words. "I would like you to leave me alone." Chu Luo. Lu Jiwei. She silently raised her thumb in her heart for Sang Wansi. "Good, it really is you. The female lead who didn't follow the script would never let me down." After the dinner ended, the actors went back to their respective hotels. After Lu Jiwei went back to her room, she was still thinking about Chu Luo's deflated expression. Thinking about it, she couldn't help collapsing on the bed and laughing out loud. "What are you laughing at?" Lao Wu asked. Lu Jiwei was out of breath from laughing so hard. Chu Luo's deflated expression is really hilarious, ha ha ha. He deserves it. Lao Wu spun a pen in his hand as he casually marked something on a document, completely not caring about the original male lead. Who asked him to target his daughter? Ever since he decided to be Lu Jiwei's mother, he was no longer the same heartless system administrator. Lao Wu, anybody who bullies my daughter must die. Lu Jiwei's laughter finally died down as she lied on the bed and patted her stomach. Jokes aside, if Chu Luo was originally not someone like this, she was still willing to try to help him. Someone who had suffered before was even more unwilling to see others suffer. As to how to help Chu Luo, she would probably help him like she helped Ying Xiz, a kind person who had been blinded only needed a few sentences of help to wake up. After she made up her mind, Lu Jiwei got up to shower. As she came out of the shower, she received a text from Sang Wansi. Wansi, are you okay? Lu Jiwei was utterly confused. Lu Jiwei, what Wansi, when Chu Luo intentionally ignored you? Lu Jiwei, that, it's a small matter. Wansi, it's not a small matter. Wansi, he was in the wrong. Sang Wansi simply could not understand why Chu Luo would treat Lu Jiwei like that. They had clearly just met, and they were still strangers. Wasn't it rude to treat a stranger like that without reason? Even her father would feel irritated when seeing a man like that. Lu Jiwei, it's okay, don't take it to heart, I don't care about these things. Lu Jiwei, don't be upset over these things too. Lu Jiwei, besides, I don't like him in the drama either, we don't have many scenes together. I'll leave once my scenes are done, and we won't have to interact with each other either. Lu Jiwei's mentality was good, she wouldn't be too upset over things for too long. Even if Chu Luo was treating her like this as part of his real personality, she was fine with it too. Besides, the little junior sister didn't like the male lead. When shooting the drama, she didn't need to act as if she really liked someone who doesn't like her. How good was that? Sang Wansi didn't say anything else after seeing how cheerful she was. Lu Jiwei slowly poured herself a glass of water. Her thumb swiped across the screen as she thought, then sent over a text to Sang Wansi. Lu Jiwei, so today, you were protecting me. She was quite confused at that moment. In her memory, Sang Wansi had never been so unhappy before. It was so obvious that all that was missing was a Chu Luo, stay away sign stuck to her face. Wansi, Wansi, I don't like him treating you like that. Lu Jiwei's heart felt warm as she smiled. It was the first time in her life that someone had felt she was being treated unfairly. It really was nice, the feeling of being protected. Lu Jiwei, all right, let us not talk about him. Lu Jiwei, my role this time is going to be someone following you around again in the beginning. Lu Jiwei, please take care of me, teacher sang. She didn't know what kind of luck she had to be working on the same productions as Sang Wansi, with such close roles each time as a small actress. The last drama, her role was as the female lead's maid who only cared about her young miss. This time, she's the female lead's little junior sister who loved to follow the female lead in the beginning and pester her constantly, while helping the female lead solve her problems. She was simply like a warm padded jacket for the female lead. But the little junior sister and Xiao He had a difference. Xiao He had died at the hands of the male lead. But the little junior sister died in the hands of the female lead. Outrageous Chapter 36. Lu Jiwei didn't know what was going on either, getting these sort of scripts with no good endings right from the start. If it wasn't for the fact that the background setting of the stories was different, she would even think that God was hinting at her own future. Living for the female lead, dying for the female lead. Thankfully they were living in a lawful society. Lu Jiwei collected her thoughts and entered the chat with Sang Wansi. Wansi, please take care of me. Wansi, I might come over to practice my lines with you in the future. Wan Si, if you need anything, you can look for me anytime too. Lu Jiwei, of course, of course. Lu Jiwei, all right, go to sleep early, good night. Wan Si, good night. She put down her phone and turned off the lights. Tomorrow was going to be another good day at work. Director Guo and Director Li had one thing in common, they had strict requirements for the script reading session. No actor could be missing. Under her guidance, Questioning Deity Sect's script reading was going smoothly. The director and cast were all gelling together well. Then, it was time to try on the outfits. Sang Wan Si's role was as a small disciple in the sect at the start. There wasn't a lot of difference between her outfit and those of the other disciples, she mainly relied on her looks to stand out. After she left the sect, her outfits started to get flashier, with both plain and refined, as well as luxurious and ornate ones. It was almost as if she was playing a dress-up game. Lu Jiwei was the opposite. Her role at the start was of the most prestigious sect leader's daughter. Her outfits and hairstyles naturally had to be more eye-catching and elaborate than the other disciples, so as to show off her status. After she turned to the demonic side, she would go on to wear red predominantly and exude more of a seductive vibe rather than the lively, clean look from before. Although she didn't have as many outfits as the female lead and second female lead, it was eye-catching enough. Sang Wan Si couldn't help but pause when she saw Lu Jiwei come out in a deep red, gauzy outfit. Lu Jiwei was very pale. Her long, slender fingers were half hidden in the deep red sleeves, enhancing her paleness and making it look as white as fresh snow on a winter day. Lu Jiwei's original, comfortable appearance was incredibly attractive after the makeup artist had worked her magic. With a flutter of her eyelashes, there was a sudden, subtle hint of coquettishness. It was almost like if she just crooked a finger, she would be able to ensnare any heart. Sang Wan Si was unable to look away. It was the first time she realized that Lu Jiwei was actually such an attractive person. Guo Hui was incredibly pleased by Lu Jiwei's outfit transformation after turning to the demonic side. There were still adjustments to be made in the early phase. She wanted the outfit to fulfill the character's naivety and cleverness. She also wanted the stylists to be bold and daring with their creativity, not limit themselves to the same styles used in other dramas. Xiangxia, it definitely relied on creativity that was different from the rest. Your attitude just now was excellent, act like that in the future and it'll be good. Guo Hui reached out and patted Lu Jiwei's shoulder. What's your name again? Lu Jiwei, right? I've heard Director Li talk about you before. Work hard, I have high hopes for you. Lu Jiwei was stunned and quickly thanked her. Good lord, was this the power of the male protagonist Halo? Just a small role as a maidservant could let a director remember her and even mention her in front of other directors. This was something she could never have dreamed of. Lao Wu didn't deny that this was part of the Halo's effect, but he also didn't deny her hard work. You worked hard, so the Halo could exemplify your excellence. When you're thanking the Halo, you should really be affirming yourself most of all. Work hard, silly daughter. The future holds so much potential, walk on the path to fame. Lu Jiwei was pleased by all the flattery. All right, no problem. Don't even talk about the path to fame. Even if it was a path of diamonds that cut her feet at every step, she would be willing to walk. She looked around and found Sang Wan Si staring directly at her. So she lifted her skirt and walked over carefully to ask, "How is it? Does it look good?" Sang Wan Si's gaze moved along with her steps, staying on her. After hearing this question, she nodded lightly. Very good looking. This shouldn't be a transparent entity. She should be a glittering star in the sky. Lu Jiwei, red is your color. Is it that's good then? I was worried I couldn't do this look justice. No, it's pretty, very good looking, nobody's more suitable than you. Lu Jiwei was overjoyed hearing that. Wow, our teacher Sang is praising me so highly, it seems like I'm really very good looking. Sang Wansi nodded seriously, as if she was affirming a very important matter. Lu Jiwei's gaze grew gentle, and she wanted to say thank you, but she held it in, pressing her lips together to avoid seeing Sang Wansi frown. She held onto Sang Wansi's fingers lightly. Wansi is good looking too, no matter which outfit you're wearing. Our Wansi is the prettiest kid on the whole set. But Sang Wansi picked up a lock of her hair and shook her head, saying gently, still a little less than Jija. In her eyes right now, Lu Jiwei was a glowing star. A bright, sparkling star was always bound to attract attention. A short distance away, Chu Luo was holding his arms out and letting the stylists arrange his outfit. He turned his head slightly to see both Sang Wansi and Lu Jiwei's gentle expressions. Their fingers were loosely hooked together, in such an intimate gesture. That flirtatious atmosphere was practically greeting his face enthusiastically. What's even worse was that Sang Wansi smiled at Lu Jiwei. Obediently and sweetly. Oh God! He really wanted Sang Wansi to smile at him like that too. Don't get angry. Chu Luo turned his face away, refusing to look at that warm, sweet, yet heart-wrenching scene. He consoled himself, it's fine, Sang Wansi definitely doesn't like Lu Jiwei. She just treats her as a sister, just as a sister. It's Lu Jiwei who's using her status as a woman to get closer to her easily, yes, that must be it. Lu Jiwei was in her room, reading her script and analyzing the character. The little junior sister was the most prestigious sect leader's daughter in everybody's eyes. But that was only in the other disciples and elders' eyes. Only the sect leader and 2 elders knew the truth, the real sect leader's daughter was someone else. The little junior sister was just an expendable tool to take the place of the sect leader's daughter and suffer tribulations in her place. The real sect leader's daughter was weak and sickly when she was born, and she was destined to live a hard life with plenty of trials and hardship. Someone offered up an ancient technique for the sect leader who loved his daughter dearly, fate exchanging. Find a girl who was born in the same hour, on the same day, same month, same year as his daughter. This girl needed to be healthy and fated to live well. When he found this girl, he could then use the ancient technique to forcibly swap their fates. This technique didn't happen immediately, but over the span of years. It would require 16 years of slow and arduous changing before it was completed. But this ancient technique went against the heavens and was considered a forbidden spell. Every cultivator knew that using forbidden spells had the possibility of incurring heaven's wrath on them. But the arrogant and proud sect leader went ahead anyway. What was so scary about heaven's wrath? It's just a few bolts of heavenly lightning, he just had to endure it. His sect had so many magical treasures, there would certainly be a few that could help to block heavenly lightning. Besides, even if heaven's wrath was incurred, it would only be him incurring it, what was there to fear? But his daughter was a different story. At that moment, his precious daughter would be reborn with a successful, smooth life. And as for the other, poor child, she wasn't important. And the little junior sister was the poor child who was kept in the dark. Before the fate exchange was completed, she would live as the sect leader's daughter in front of everybody's eyes. Because of the fate exchange, she was always very unlucky, meeting all sorts of danger. She was tripped by the doorsill when she was young, and she would always encounter demons and beasts who would chase after her when she was grown. And the female lead was just so coincidentally the person who would save her from all those incidents. So in her eyes, the female lead was her savior, an extraordinary person. She was the stars, the moon, the most special existence. Lu Jiwei rubbed her chin and sucked in a breath. There was a problem that had troubled her for a few days now. Speaking truthfully, why did she feel there was something wrong with this the most special existence it can't be? She couldn't help but exclaim. That sort of relationship where she gets jealous when she sees senior sister being nice to others, puts aside her soft bed and gets into senior sister's hard bed and hugs her to sleep every night. Why did everything have such an odd aura to it? Lao Wu raised an eyebrow. Isn't it? Lu Jiwei scratched her head. Is this little junior sister too inappropriate, or am I misunderstanding things due to a lack of experience in friendships? She decided to ask the director tomorrow. She had to understand this question to properly play the role. She had seen the work of the scriptwriter of Questioning Deity Sect before. This scriptwriter was someone who loved to include subtext, including the relationships of the minor characters. Some characters had never said a single like or love in the entire drama, but the audience could still feel their burning and passionate feelings through their actions. It was even more touching than spoken words. This scriptwriter also liked to include fake decoys. In Questioning Deity Sect, there were a few other disciples that were close to the little junior sister aside from the female lead. The little junior sister did have a confession scene to someone in her own sect, and she even confessed to the wrong person, but in the script, it didn't say who the person she really wanted to confess to was. So Lu Jiwei didn't dare to make any assumptions. She would just clarify things tomorrow. The next day, Lu Jiwei went to find the scriptwriter. The scriptwriter pushed her glasses up and smiled. Yes, it's exactly as you're thinking. Lu Jiwei said in her heart, aha. And then the scriptwriter pulled on her hand and said, but you can't tell anyone. Lu Jiwei. The scriptwriter said slowly, when the audience is watching the drama, they will view it from everybody's angle. The little junior sister's feelings are hidden in the drama. Nobody else is inclined that way, so they just viewed her as a younger sister who's sticking to an older sister. They won't think of it that way. Not telling the rest of the cast is to protect this secrecy so they can act more naturally. The audience won't be able to deduce it that quickly when viewing it from their perspective. When the show is finished and the audience starts examining the details, it'll be an Easter egg. She said excitedly, I like giving the audience Easter eggs. Lu Jiwei. That's clearly a smoke grenade. The scriptwriter smiled and patted her shoulder, get close to her honestly and openly, like her secretly and carefully. Work hard, I hope you can bring these feelings to the character. Alright, don't worry, I'll try my best. Lu Jiwei said solemnly. They started filming the scenes when the female lead was still a disciple. When she was a disciple, of course, the little junior sister couldn't be absent. Sangwon Ci wore the sky blue robes of the sect's disciples, her soft hair loosely let down with a single band adorning it. She tilted her head slightly to look at Lu Jiwei, who was filling her sleeves with apples. Lu Jiwei had more hair ornaments and her outfit was on the cuter side. When she moved, the dangling tassels and pendants would move as well, it was quite satisfying to watch. Feeling someone's gaze on her, Lu Jiwei looked around and smiled when she realized it was Sangwon Ci. Sangwon Ci smiled back. Chu Luo, who had observed it, envious, jealous, sour. With their props assembled, the two of them sat with the other actors on a futon. Before they went to film their scenes, Sangwon Ci heard Lu Jiwei call out to her softly, Shija. Sangwon Ci froze. suddenly hearing someone older than her calling her Ji. It was quite weird. With a hint of amusement in her eyes, she bit back a smile as she looked at Lu Jiwei. What is it? Lu Jiwei hugged the apple props in her sleeve as she looked at the road under her feet. Oh, nothing, I just wanted to call you beforehand to let you get used to it. Lu Jiwei was worried she was affected by it, so she consoled her. It's okay, you don't have to feel embarrassed. You calling me Ji and me calling you Shija, it's two different matters. Sang Wansi. She wasn't embarrassed either. The first scene was of the disciples sitting quietly in class. The little junior sister that Lu Jiwei was acting as was a disobedient student. Sitting behind her senior sister, she secretly took out an apple and prepared to bite down on it. Before she took a bite, she stretched out her neck to look at Qing Xin elder in front. Thinking about it, she stretched out a hand and poked her senior sister's waist. Shija! She called out in a low voice. Sang Wansi, acting as the senior sister, turned her head slightly. From Lu Jiwei's perspective, her body was well toned with a good bone structure. She looked every bit like a main character who was going to accomplish great things. The little junior sister saw her senior sister turn and she quickly said in a quiet voice, Shija, sit straighter, I want to eat my apple. Senior sister. You should pay attention, she was like a rule-abiding student. If not for the fact that she straightened up after saying that. The little junior sister was happy, hee. Thank you Shija. The disciple next to her saw it and said quietly, Little Shimei, I want to eat one too. Another disciple agreed, I want one too, I want one too. The little junior sister rolled her eyes at the two of them and used her power to split the apple, saying, Why didn't you say so earlier, I only brought one. Tell me beforehand next time, I can stuff two more in my sleeves if I try. Here, don't get caught. In the end, before the apple even made it to their mouths, Qing Xin elder sent 3 spiritual darts towards them. The 3 of them collapsed to the ground, calling out in pain. The scene was light-hearted and funny. Qing Xin elder held a hand behind his back as he called out the 3 of them, instead of attending class properly, you're eating apples. The 3 of you, go sweep Zhao Yu altar now. He called on the female lead as well, Xiao Jing, you go supervise them. Understood, elder. The female lead stood up. Cut. Guo Hui called for the cameras to stop, the effect is pretty good. Sang Wansi and Lu Jiwei immediately went to the director's side to view the shot. It was a simple scene that didn't need any expressive emotions. It was one of the rare occasions Sang Wansi didn't ask for a reshoot. But this time, her gaze unknowingly was stuck on her little junior sister. On screen, Lu Jiwei managed to portray the little junior sister's innocence and liveliness without any flaws. With the slight flutter of her eyelashes, she was charming, exuding cuteness everywhere. Even her complaining when cutting the apple was cute. She moved her gaze to Lu Jiwei, only to see that with the director's permission, she was happily biting on the apple. Seeing Sang Wansi look over, Lu Jiwei's movements paused as she smiled and mouthed, "Want some?" She shook her head. Lu Jiwei's mouth immediately became a round shape, "Oh." Then she continued to happily eat her free apple as she watched the screen. Sang Wansi couldn't help but look at her for another moment. When did she become so adorable? The filming was very smooth. Although Qiu Luo was a narcissistic person, but he was still an excellent male lead. His work ability wasn't poor and he didn't need anybody to worry about his performance. What was frustrating was he couldn't understand Sang Wansi's many rejections, and he even liked to sprout many greasy pickup lines. "Miss Sang, I bought a match today. What match are match made in heaven? Miss Sang, it's such a nice day, do you need a handsome man to accompany you for a walk? Miss Sang is really good looking when you smile, you look exactly like my next girlfriend. Miss Sang, Miss Sang, Miss Sang. Sang Wanci was finally driven to the limits of her tolerance, and she arranged to speak to him separately. Chu Luo, I'm repeating myself again. Sang Wanci's expression was bland, as if she had no interest at all in the man in front of her. I don't like you, not now, not ever. It's all right, Miss Sang. There's a term in the world called smells delicious. Chu Luo calmly brushed a strand of hair from his wig away. I'm willing to wait. Sang Wanci stared at him icily, there's no need to wait, you're not in my circle of consideration. Hearing that, Chu Luo decided to push through and ask about her likes, then what is in Miss Sang's circle of consideration I'm willing to change for Miss Sang. Sang Wanci folded her arms and looked at him with a steady gaze. There's no meaning in pestering someone. I don't like you as a person, so I want to like you no matter how you change. She didn't get it. Why did some people constantly seek after and try to forcibly obtain love that they couldn't get? Shouldn't they leave after the other party's intentions have been made known and not bother them use that time to get rid of their feelings? Why waste the time of two people? To her, liking someone was a precious thing, it shouldn't be wasted on someone who wouldn't reciprocate. Sang Wanci wasn't interested in hearing his response, so she spoke again, go like another girl, you don't have to waste your time on me. If you don't have any other girls to like, then try the other gender. Chu Luo. Sang Wanci said seriously, we don't have to hold on so tightly to our sexuality when dating, one more gender means one more choice. Chu Luo. I like you, but you're advising me to be gay.